and welcome to the Pragmatic Product Chat Series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I'm Rebecca Kalogeris for Pragmatic Institute and your host for this episode. Joining us today is Sam Mallikarjunan, the growth lead at Agent AI, where he helps drive the development and adoption of AI-driven solutions to enhance customer service and sales. He has previously led innovation initiatives at companies like HubSpot Labs and Flock.com. He's also a former professor at Harvard University and co-author of Inbound Commerce, How to Sell Better Than Amazon. So we are really excited to have Sam on and talking about AI, but also AI in the very practical, how is it going to help my business sense? Welcome, Sam.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
All right, Sam, I always give the little bio up front, but my first question is always about what is your origin story, right? How did you get where you are and develop the superpowers that make you so passionate about what you do?
Yeah, I've had a strange career journey. I actually started out hosting an AM FM talk radio show in Tampa about cigars and scotch and whiskeys and stuff like that. And this is back in kind of the early 2000s. The folks in the cigar industry were like, Sam, you know how the internet works, right? And I'm like, yeah, I can write HTML, sure. So I ended up being the person building all their websites. Then they wanted to make money with their websites. Had no idea how to do that. So I started Googling about internet marketing and stuff like that. That's how I found HubSpot. I didn't have a college degree or a bunch of experience. So I built a site called hiremehubspot.com. And I ran ads targeting people who worked there. This is 2010 to register for the free webinar on why you should hire me. And that's where I got my start. Yeah, spent 8 years at HubSpot.
I love that. That is the, oh man, what a way to stand out from the crowd. And also I'm excited to so I'm just going back to the bio for a minute where you were a professor at Harvard. Have you gone back to get a degree or did you get to teach at Harvard with all these people who spend a lot of money for their degrees and just
So I was an instructor in the continuing education department. So all of my students were people who already had jobs. It was VPs at Visa and Toyota and things like that. I am also a faculty chair and taught at USF, which is the college I dropped out of, which is, I think, slightly more ironic. But yes, to this day, my father still does nag me that I should go back and finish my bachelor's degree in political science, even though that probably wouldn't be a huge career move for me.
Yeah, probably not the most helpful. All right, so tell us a little bit about the work you do now.
Yeah, so I used to run HubSpot Labs under Dharmesh Shah, who co-founded HubSpot. Last summer, Dharmesh sent me an email saying he's building something called Agent.ai, and he wanted to know if we could have 100,000 users by HubSpot's Inbound conference, which is in September. Sure, why not? We gave it a shot. And we did. We had 156,000 people using the site the week of Inbound. We're about to pass 1 million people signed up for the site. In fact, by the time this airs, we should be past that. But basically, his idea was, can we build a marketplace for people to build and discover AI agents? So there are people building AI studios, Salesforce, Microsoft, et cetera. But it's generally an enterprise AI with their data in their context, right? So the idea here was, can we make it so that anybody can build an AI agent? So kind of democratize access to building it. And also, can anybody use them? Because we don't want technical skill or money to be a limiting factor to prevent people from kind of participating in AI future. So yeah, we launched it Inbound. It went really well. And now I'm just kind of getting the old band back together. We've got a lot of the original HubSpot kind of executives and team from when I first started there. We were only 150 people. We're working on this. It's not part of HubSpot. It's strategically adjacent to HubSpot in that, the founder of both, we share a founder, but none of us are actually on the HubSpot team. So that's what we're working on right now. We've got over 10,000 agents people have built, something like 20 million agents. People have run agents in the last few months here. So it's quite an exciting time.
I love this kind of continues. I think one of the exciting things about sort of the generative AI pieces is the democratization of AI, right? Before that, it was only the people with the deep engineering backgrounds and the understanding that were thinking they could do it with big pockets if they were an enterprise company spending millions of dollars. And as you start to see a lot more people play with it. I love the sort of goal here is okay, you can play with it, but I want you to also be able, regardless of your size, which is something HubSpot's always been also really good about, right? Regardless of your size and the depth of your pockets, you should be able to leverage AI in your organization. Talk to me about some of the agents that have been created.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, by the way, I was very much an AI doomer a year ago. I'm now an AI boomer. My worry was that we would go from having millions of websites to having thousands of agents and like dozens of orchestration agents, and that would actually like stifle innovation. Turns out the opposite has happened, in part because of platforms like Agent.ai, where you want to be able to build your own agents without having to, just like the WYSIWYG CMS made it so that non-technical people could participate in the internet of content, I will. Now you want to make it so that people can participate in the internet of context. A lot of what people built in the beginning is what you'd expect, right? Sales reps figured out how can I use this to spam more effectively, email, LinkedIn, super annoying. People use it for content creation. I really find it interesting. People are using them for personal applications. Like to get started with AI agents, people are building like a Dungeons and Dragon agent, like to get comfortable with AI agents. So we see a lot of that. And then also, I'm really interested in the people who are using it to empower learning and communication. So creating content is one thing, but I have a friend who actually he created his own AI agent to rewrite his text messages because he has just some communication issues.
Okay.
And so when he texts his friends and family, it kind of customizes what he's saying to like the way that they communicate. So I like kind of short, punchy stuff, not long essays. So I think that's what's really interesting to me is like there's the obvious, lazy kind of how do we spam at scale? People are obviously using it that way. But what's much more interesting to me is people using it to learn, people using it to communicate better, and also people just giving themselves a wider range of skills. Right? Like I can write mediocre code, even though I'm not, a real engineer, without bothering the engineering team. Conversely, the engineering team can understand what we're talking. Like, how does the inflation report that came out this morning affect what their product roadmap should be? Normally, that would be a very long, kind of involved conversation. So that's really what I enjoy. It's the blank canvas problem right now. So much is possible that people are a little overwhelmed with like where should they start? Which is why building something for yourself is a good place.
I love that idea of I could also what a great dungeon master, but like of using it to build like your own tools. But help us just break it down. So when you talk about an agent, you were very clear that this is not like we've locked onto your data and it's really specific to you. So how does the agent play into what we think of as, a ChatGPT model? Like how does this all relate?
Yeah, ChatGPT is awesome. It has a few limitations. One is its ability to actually take actions in other platforms. So there's, to an extent, you need to be able to force like when a new ticket is created in your help desk, then add it to a classification of all the tickets that have been analyzed in the past, and then classify it for the product team in the future. There's some of this like very kind of like methodical step-by-step stuff that you want to force. You also want it to be able to do more than just chat. You want it to be able to, for example, I have one that runs every day that it looks at my Google Calendar. It uses, I think, Clearbit to enrich information about who I'm meeting that day, goes and fetches all your posts on LinkedIn, and then generates an audio overview for me. So when I go for my morning walk, I have an audio overview that's essentially a briefing for my day, who I'm going to meet, what I should be talking to them about. So I think that's what's really interesting to me is, and a lot of the models are better at other things, right? So Anthropic and Claude are better for certain cases than, even the newest ChatGPT models or the GPT-4o models. So I think that ability to be able to force chain of thought, chain of reasoning is something that I always wish they had. But then the bigger thing was they never really did anything with the custom GPT store. And that's it's kind of like the early days of the mobile app stores, right? Where you have everybody kind of talking to each other, the developers and the users, and that's awesome. But you've got to find a way to like give people an incentive to build, improve, and support their AI agents. And so like that's where our marketplace angle is going to eventually come in. Right now, we don't facilitate transactions, but it's on the roadmap for this year to make it so that if you want to build a business building AI agents for people, that you can do that just like you did if you're building mobile apps for people back in the day.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat back what I think we're talking about, and I'm going to be wrong, and I'm just going to play the role on purpose. We're going to pretend like for those listening at home. Okay, so the AI agent is sort of allows you to connect the sort of generative AI models to other applications that then execute on the learning. Yes? or
Yeah.
no?
So you can feed it context about yourself. You can, for example, like you can create a digital clone of yourself to answer questions the way you would answer it or to help you write things. So you give it as much context as you can about yourself. And then all the various agents, because you can have teams of agents, right? You might have an agent that plans your day. You might have an agent that summarizes the news for you. You might have an agent that prepares a report and sends it to your boss, or that synthesizes all the information coming from customers and comes to you. So the more focused you can make an agent, not just have a talent acquisition agent, but have a talent acquisition agent for executive search recruiters in Scotland, a real thing. The more focused you make it, the better the performance is going to be. And I think that's what's really interesting is being able to customize it and then have it take actions on your behalf. So I don't go in and trigger it every morning. I just get an email with a file that I download. That's my audio overview while I go for a walk in the morning. And that's what makes AI agents, I think, more interesting than just like chatbots. Is they have agency in the literal sense, not the philosophical sense. They can go take actions on your behalf. And that's what I think is going to be really interesting for product leaders and managers, developers in the future is what happens in a world in which AI agents start using tools for us. We don't actually have to log into SaaS platforms to do things. That's going to kind of change the way we think about UX.
Interesting. You're right? There's the user, and the user interface is very different in those two models. And we spend so much time building interfaces that don't overwhelm us, that translate it for the human, understanding that there's going to be an agent in there potentially who like that just gets in the way is a really interesting sort of dichotomy there. That's interesting. So how does this, so you said I don't need to be a coder in order to make this happen. What is the process of going in there?
Yeah. So for any number of agent studios, right? There are other ones that have better functionality, by the way. Agent.ai is just one, free, because we think there's no point in charging for this. And two, it's going to be a marketplace so you can combine agents. So if you want to, decide what sites to look at, that's the way. But you literally just go, and if you can use workflow tool builders and just think methodically, you should be able to build an agent, right? So you say, so my chess, I have a chess assessment agent. So when I meet with my chess coach every week, I got annoyed at how he kept saying I was dumb and mess up all my games. So, I just built an agent and I said, anytime I finish a game, go look at it, analyze it, and then go look at all the videos my coach assigned me this week, and then generate a quiz for me that asks me questions based on what I got wrong and based on what I should have known, and then give me feedback on my answers that tell me here's how I could have improved my answer. Very super basic step thing that you might do, for something like that. So if you can just think methodically like that, you can do those actions, then you can build an agent. That's really all there is to it. It's no different than any of the other workflow builders we've been using for 2 decades. The only difference is, one, the amount of information it can process and the interesting things it could do. And then two, the ability to let it actually take actions on your behalf. So send an email or update a dashboard or actually do things, not just recommend things to you, which is what AI, the difference between AI historically and generative AI is, as we all know, quite literally, it's gone from just saying here's what we think is going to happen, it's just prediction, to we have so much confidence in the prediction that we're just going to generate it for you.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and so I can see why you're saying too that one of the challenges of it is sort of the white space. You could do just about anything, right? I would be curious in a couple. So, I mean, one of the things we always talk about is don't just because you can. And again, I think AI, I was doing another episode earlier, and it is a place that's a little bit different. There is some go ahead and try stuff, but I do think think about the problems that you're having either in your role or in your company that something like this might be able to help through. Seems like a really logical place to start. But what are some sort of business use cases, not the spammers, besides our sales spammers, what other sort of, agent use cases have you seen? Or what areas do you see a lot of people exploring?
Yeah, so a few main interesting ones. One is just efficiency. So can a single employee have a very outsized impact by using AI to just be more efficient with their day, not have to attend meetings? I have AI agents that attend meetings for me and only summarize the bits for me that I would have found interesting because it knows what I do and don't know. Using it also as internal for employees to kind of increase the scope. So we're all still T-shaped professionals. We still have the thing that we're deep at, but now like sales reps can create collateral without bothering the marketing team. And, the marketers can do data analysis without needing to get a degree in data science. So like the breadth of stuff that we can be okay at has increased dramatically. And so like that means that, I like to tell the story. There was a woman on the marketing team at HubSpot way back in the day. She taught herself like CSS and jQuery so she could build a slide in CTA for the site. Very novel idea at the time. You're scrolling down, slide in CTA, somebody clicks it. But she had to like take a lot of time to teach herself that. Now everybody on every marketing team can run experiments like that without actually having to like take the time to learn code. And then the final one is just the way that you can interact with customers. So I'll use live chat as an example. Sure, you could use AI to make it so that live chat reps can go from having 3 concurrent conversations to having 30. And you can either say, awesome, I now need 1/10 the number of live chat reps. Or you can say what more interesting thing, which is my live chat reps can now have a deeper, more contextually relevant and valuable conversation with each individual user. So they can know information about their industry. They can know information about their product usage, things that weren't scalable with the amount of time that they had previously. So people who are using AI to create a deeper relationship and experience with their users and customers instead of just using it as a cost-cutting measure, I think the latter is very short-sighted. I think it's the obvious thing to do. I think the companies that are going to win long-term are the ones who say, cool, we've got this margin efficiency now because of AI. Let's use it to create a better experience, not let's use it to make the existing experience more profitable.
More scalable. That's true, right? When we talk about like AI replacing humans, this is a conversation that numerous people have had in different ways. But to your point, where the difference isn't, it's the improvements we can have, not just the scalability of what we have. I think that's a really strong point. I think about this too, because I'm going back to it, so it can take action on my behalf, which in lots of ways seems really good. But we also all know the story, like they get stuff wrong. Yeah. Right. And we often say it's okay they get things wrong because it's just important you have a human in there to catch the mistakes. How does this balance that, right? Like if I'm having them act, then there is no human guard in between. And what happens when they go, how do we keep them from going,
Yeah, I think of AI agents very much the way I think of interns. They come out of, Sloan with their fancy MBA and they have a lot more confidence than they should have. And anything I wouldn't let an intern do, I'm not going to at least without supervision, I'm not going to let the AI agent do, because they don't yet know, much like an intern, just for different reasons, they don't yet know when to doubt themselves. So you and I have had long careers where we've been beaten down by reality, and
we've made those mistakes, my friend.
Exactly, yeah. We know that we can just sense that there's something's going to go wrong, or that we don't know something, et cetera. The AI agents and the interns all just want to give an answer. They think they know what to do. So that's generally my guideline. Like I wouldn't let an intern hit send on an email to 8 million people without me checking it. So I'm not going to let an AI agent do that. Am I going to let it prepare a briefing? Am I going to let it like email a summary of the meeting to the team? Sure. Like it's kind of like a low kind of downside. I don't really need to check that in advance. Yeah. So it's the risk reward spectrum with AI agents. And if you need a human in the loop, just treat it exactly the same way you would treat an intern.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we also get stuck on this too. I mean, we all do this, right? Like, it may grab one day the wrong Rebecca Kalogeris for your briefing. It won't, because there's only one of me. But like, if you were meeting with someone named Tom Smith, like it could make a mistake and give you things in the wrong, which wouldn't be tragic. It would be annoying. On the other hand, you, I'm guessing, do not have time to go through and do all of these things. So it either happens this way at 85% accuracy or 95%, it's probably way higher than that, right? Or it doesn't happen at all. And that level of thing is also, I think, a really important part of the discussion. It may not be perfect, but it is not wrong.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, because it's stuff that, to your point, I wasn't going to do anyways, right? I wasn't going to sit there and look up all your last 100 LinkedIn posts and context on your company and everything else like that. Yeah. I was just going to show up to the podcast recording and, do what I've been doing for 20 years and wing it. So if it was slightly wrong and said, and gave me some bad information about you, the worst case scenario was that I prepped for the wrong thing. But considering I would have been going in with no prep, is that really that bad? Right. So yeah, absolutely. There's using it for things with it's just augmenting things that you weren't going to be able to do anyways. Like when my self-driving car like can't change lanes on its own, it's like I could do that on my own. I just wanted to be able to do that better on its own. So it's, not that bad when it doesn't work perfectly.
Do you feel like the self-driving car is a bigger risk than an inappropriate brief before a call?
Yes, I would not let an intern. Well, I would not let the equivalent of an intern getting their learner's permit drive the car without supervision. Yeah,
yes.
That's why we have learner's permits.
Exactly. So once we kind of build the agent, how then does it get smarter? Like you know what I mean? Like we make a mistake. Is there a teaching loop that is human driven, or is it all refined this way? Like again, that was close, intern, but let's talk about what we should do next time. Is there a built-in mechanism for that?
Yeah. So agent.ai, most agents have the reinforcement learning through human feedback kind of concept where on any given output, you can give a thumbs up, you can give a thumbs down. We actually incentivize the users of your agents to do that. And ideally provide like additional feedback, like which output would you have preferred? ChatGPT, all the other ones are the exact same way. The idea is that the more feedback it gets, it's learning. Like, okay, AI is an intern. It's also a puppy, right? So like if you train a puppy, if you only ever tell it when it does bad, it has to use process of elimination for everything it could do in existence. If you only tell it everything it's good, you might end up with like biased behaviors because you're not also telling it that it's bad. So giving both positive and negative feedback helps train the models faster because we're all unique, right? My summary might be different. The things I care about and want, the modality that I want, the context I want, even just the attitude that I want might be different than you. And so it's got to learn those nuances over time, which is why I think the people who build good AI agents are going to have really sticky experiences because I pay for, just dumb example, I pay for Hallmark Plus. My wife and I are big Hallmark movie nerds. But I've been using Netflix since they were mailing out DVDs, long before they started doing streaming. And I actually watch Hallmark movies on Netflix just because the recommendation engine is so good. Like Hallmark's recommendation engine is essentially useless. They don't have a recommendation engine. Netflix knows so much about me that it can make those recommendations much better. So the longer the relationship that the user has with the platform, the more data that you have, the better you're going to be able to create kind of that customized experience. Because we all know, like UX is about great art. It's all about removing things.
Yep.
Right? Can I remove everything from the experience that's not interesting to the user? And that's something that AI is going to be very, very useful for, I think, in terms of product design, but also just in terms of giving your users capabilities and making your product stickier. Because if they go to a different product, they lose all their context.
Yeah. And it's super interesting. Like to your point, the agents then there's the agent that is the flow, but then there's an agent instance, right? That understands Sam and how Sam thinks and how Sam communicates and all of those pieces that make things very customized. And yes, relearning it would be tough. I do have to say though, that when we go to an Airbnb, sometimes we will log into Netflix as a guest just to see what it's not showing us. And we found every once in a while, like a show, we're like, oh, should that be done? I kind of did like that, but it would never have showed up in our connections. So It's always interesting. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about lots of different stuff. And I think we talked about using it for productivity, right? Like, what are you doing that's not a manual that you could get an intern to do for you? We talked about customer support and not just and how to improve the experience, right? Because we all have that moment when we had a really good customer support experience and you're like, oh. We talked a little bit about sales and how sales do it. I would be curious too, and you've talked a little bit about this in other places, about sort of as a collaboration tool with not just itself, but with other humans. And I think sometimes we think of it as like it narrows our world down, right? Like it's just me and the AI now, then I don't need the marketing team anymore because I know how to do that, or the data team. But how else can it kind of really work on collaboration?
Yeah, I'm very much interested, one, in its impact on meetings. We actually have 1/10 the number of meetings that we used to, because people can just do Loom videos and then it'll synthesize, from the transcripts of everybody's videos or from meetings I didn't even attend, things that not only summaries for me, but then I can ask it questions. I can say what's the status of this? It'll go find that kind of appropriate information. I'm really interested in the communication styles thing. Not everybody has the same communication style.
I love that.
Dharmesh is famous for his like sorry no calls thing. Like I don't meet with Dharmesh even though I work for him, just because he doesn't want to do meetings. He gets to make that choice. And so even though I like meetings, and he likes really long, lengthy things, I like very short, punchy things. Being able to adapt your communication style to the audience at scale when you have a company, I think is going to be something that's very interesting. And then also just being able to have more access to real-time data. Like if you're in a meeting, there's nothing I hate more than you're in a freaking meeting and you have to say, well, let's go get that data and come back and like have another meeting now.
Right.
It turns out we weren't actually prepared for this meeting. So because conversational UX is so natural for us, being able to like have the AI in the meeting helping you with things saves so much time and speeds up that kind of feedback loop. I think it's going to change how we design orgs, though. Like when people are so T-shaped and reporting structures, like there should be a lot more, mid-level and entry-level peer-to-peer collaboration without having to go like your manager to the director to the VP to their director to their VP, because you don't need that many humans in the loop when you can use it to kind of synthesize things. And then jargon translation. That's one of my favorite things. Like Zoom has their Zoom companion. I love that thing because I can just be like, what is the engineering team talking about here? And it'll say like, oh, like when they're using artifacts here, they're not referring to Indiana Jones. They're referring to like, something in the user experience.
Wow. It's super interesting, all the different ways. And I think about I have a kid on the spectrum and the different communication ways and the different ways she learns and processes things. And you just think, wow, like we see this already, like some of the abilities to translate, right? There are very traditional models of learning and understanding that have been perpetuated that just don't work for some people. Yeah. And it's hard to change it for everybody, right? As a individual, it's not if we leverage some of these tools.
Yeah, it's a tough skill to master. Everybody jokes because I like tend to sit outside because it's Florida and I'll have like a cigar while I'm doing a one-on-one or something with somebody. And I'm joking. I'm like the cigar is not for my health; it's for yours, right? Because it makes me like pause and listen more. And that is like one of the keys to being just a good manager is listening and letting people talk. But it's so hard for people. AI is perpetually patient. Like the other day, it was 3:00 in the morning, couldn't sleep, and I had it just teaching me some weird quantum physics nuance. It sat there for right, yeah. I don't know what I was thinking, but it sat there for 4 hours talking me through until it was finally like, oh, here, I understand why you're not getting this, and it's because the word force is used in different ways in physics, and in this context it was this, and in this context it was that. And no human, one, I couldn't afford to have a human. No, one, I wouldn't want a human in my bedroom at 3 a.m. Two, I could afford to, and then three, no human would sit there for 4 hours, like communicating to me the way that I need to be communicated to. So I think like the communication style, because the transformer architecture was originally, it was translation, right? It was the context of the word. I say server, am I talking about a waiter? Am I talking about a computer server? It's a really important kind of distinction. I think it'll be amazing for accessibility for people who have languages and dialects that the tech world hasn't been able to support at scale before, but also people whose communication styles we haven't been able to support before, or whose sensory disabilities, right? Like the multimodality idea of being able to have a website not just use like a screen reader and read to you, but like really talk to you and engage to you if audio is better for you. Or like my wife likes to read things; she doesn't want to have somebody talking to her. Like being able to have the internet. I think the internet felt really big for the last 20 years, but that was because it was actually limited. The internet of tomorrow, I think, is going to feel a lot smaller because it's going to be customized to each of us. Like we will have fundamentally, not just website personalization, we'll have fundamentally different ways of experiencing and interacting with tools, content, and people. I think that's going to be cool. It's going to feel cozier because it's more, it's actually going to be bigger in terms of being infinite. Whereas the internet of the past, we had to create each one of those web pages, and that was really annoying.
One of the things you talked about was that the breadth of things that we can be okay at has increased exponentially. I would think that's amazing, but I also think we have to be sophisticated enough to understand when okay on something isn't good enough. Right. And it's a higher level reasoning to be like, oh, I should be better than okay at this.
Yeah. And that's where experience and judgment comes in. For example, like for my local Irish pub, I built a drunken spelling bee game And I did not need to bother the engineering team or like any of my friends to help me build that. Historically, I would have, which probably means I just wouldn't have done it for them.
Right.
But one of the things that worries me is if we replace all the tasks of entry-level professionals, where do the senior professionals of tomorrow come from?
How do you learn? We learned by doing, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So like junior sales reps, you replace all the entry-level sales reps because AI is like good enough to be a BDR. Where do the senior level sales reps who have that judgment of tomorrow come from? And I think that's actually another interesting way people are applying AI. Don't try to replace the sales rep, replace the prospect. Let sales reps practice against synthetic prospects.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Based on like your corpus of trading data, your gong call recordings, your CRM data, et cetera. Let your hiring managers practice interviewing people. Let your customer support reps practice against like fake people rather than costing your company money because you have to give the leads to a BDR that might have closed if you gave them to somebody else, but you didn't have that choice. So it's not just, that's another thing I think the leadership community really needs to think about is it's not about replacing people in your company, right? There's a lot more of like, can we replace, any of the social interactions and give people the ability to practice? Like interviewing. People are bad at interviewing. People suck at interviewing because you only do it a couple dozen times maybe in your career.
Right.
But the consequences of being bad at it are pretty severe. So like, can we, as a company who wants to get good?
To be fair, if you're bad at it, you'll do it a whole lot more.
Yeah. But as a company who wants to get good applicants, can you make it so that, you can't have your recruiters sitting there talking to somebody for 4 hours at 3 a.m. You could have an AI doing it and trying to understand if an employee is going to be a good fit or not.
Oh, that's interesting too, because there are sometimes, again, we aren't good at the traditional style of interviews. That doesn't mean we wouldn't be like the frickin' best coder you've ever seen, right?
Unless you're interviewing salespeople, there's not really an expectation that somebody has to be good at an interview. Like probably the best marketer I ever hired, she was so bad at the interview. But I could tell she was good. So I asked her, I'm like, how do you normally, she likes presentations. I'm like, awesome. Go home.
Definitely
do a presentation. Yeah. I'm like, do a presentation, come back and we'll like do a group thing instead of the normal interview thing. And she nailed it. And she's one of the best people I ever hired. But if I had just gone off of, that kind of interview experience, I wouldn't have understood the greater depth. Now, sales reps, it's easy. It's honestly, you're fishing with dynamite when you're interviewing sales reps because you don't even have to be good at the conversation. You expect them to ask good questions and manage the flow of the conversation, et cetera. But other than that role, I think we miss a lot of really good people just because we don't have the time, bandwidth, and context to really understand all the people who are applying to a company.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we talked about like sort of agents, and we've had the recent sort of move from to generative AI with the reasoning pieces. That's pretty fun to play around with. You're on the street. What's next? Like it's moving so fast. So like what's next could be tomorrow. But what are you excited about that's coming up?
I mean, part of what I'm excited about is our thesis that performance is going to go up and cost is going to go down is true, which is good because we spend a lot of money subsidizing people using AI because we pay for like all the premium features, but we don't charge for it.
Yeah.
I think the operator capability is what I find really, really interesting. Again, we were talking earlier, what does the world look like if I no longer have to log into SaaS applications, right? If I can just talk to my Google Home or Alexa assistant and have it, generate a web page for me, and I don't have to log into Squarespace or, whatever the CMS is. It's a bit like that. The integration platform as a service concept, Zapier, if this then that, or just like the app ecosystems in general, completely changed how we experience technology because a single technology platform did not have to build everything, right? I forget the stat. I used to teach this, but what was it? Apple made like $3 billion off of Pokemon Go, right? They didn't have to build Pokemon Go, but they made a ton of money off of Pokemon Go. And the AI interoperability of being able to use different tools and then also having agents use agents. This is actually, it's really fascinating. I think it's the 7th most common thing people do on our platform is invoke other agents. So instead of having to go replicate this functionality, like maybe you want to have an agent experience inside your platform, but you don't want to build everything from scratch. You don't have to, right? Just like with, Zapier being able to connect things together. So when I, get an email, I don't know, generate a summary or something like that, you can now have AI agents working with other agents and have a lot more context. And somebody brought it up yesterday. it's like, are we going to end up with just agents ping-ponging back and forth with each other? Yeah, but is that a bad thing? Right? Like you've got an agent trying to sell me something. I've got an agent whose job it is to help me make good purchase decisions. And they, have their own objectives and they're going to filter out the information between each other. And that means we don't have to do that, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Okay. We talked about a ton of different things today, Sam. It's been delightful. If you were going to have listeners do 2 things differently tomorrow based on what we talked about today, what would it be?
So one, I would go to some of the AI directories, like there's an AI for that.com and such. The blank canvas problem, you can really help solve that just by looking at what other people are doing. There's an incredible amount of creativity happening, and that might inspire you. But the second thing is like, go build an agent. Like go build something. Make it do something dumb. A chess coach, something like that. But get used to agentic functionality, because unlike digital transformation, where we kind of had 20 years, to learn it and take a course on it and everything else like that, you're not going to have 20 years to become AI literate. And so I think making an active investment in that right now, even if it's very low risk, like we talked about earlier, is the most important thing that you can be doing. You use ChatGPT to create new recipes for you. Like it doesn't matter, but have it be a part of your day and start to understand how the humans of the future are going to interact with technology and with other humans, because it's going to be different. And it is kind of hard to wrap your head around until you get into it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always easier once we do it. Yeah. All right, Sam, this was delightful. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that does it for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And don't forget to join us next week when we tackle another great topic designed to help you elevate your product, your company, and your career.